Imagine unlocking the timeless secrets behind every beautifully designed space. After diving into Joanna Gaines' masterclass, I'm sharing the most transformative lessons to help you create a home that truly speaks to you. So when I took Joanna's class, I couldn't help but just jotting down a bajillion notes. And in this video, I've organized all of her top design lessons into 3 simple phases that you'll want to use in every single space that you design. Phase 1 is finding the soul, aka figuring out what you're working with. Second, finishes, and third, furniture. If you've ever wondered, why does my home just feel disjointed? Or maybe you're stuck wondering what small changes can make the biggest impact on your space, or how to turn your tiny space into something which appears larger and a bit more livable. Hold tight for tips on that last one specifically. I'm talking about that a little bit later. Now, these tips and secrets will give you the answers that you've been searching for, so let's get started. Phase 1, find the soul. So your first tip is this: start with what you dislike. So often we can feel indecision because we see so much design inspiration online that we can't even determine what do we actually like, which makes the decision making even so much harder. And so instead, if you're struggling with figuring out what you like, just flip the process. Start by noticing what you dislike. Does dark and moody just not feel right to you? Then light and airy might be your style. Or if you're like, minimalism, not my thing, then maybe you're a maximalist who loves bold colors and decor everywhere. Tip number 2, uncover the hidden character. What if the most beautiful part of your space is actually hiding in plain sight? Joanna says that one of the first steps to redesigning is to look deeper, literally. Is there wood flooring under that old carpet or shiplap hidden behind some drywall? So before you just accept your space as is, if it's an older home or something that's been renovated before, start by looking underneath to see if maybe there's any character that you can unearth from the space. And if that's not your home at all, move along to tip number 3, new build solutions. With a new build, there's likely no character in sight, so it's up to us to create it. But what character exactly do you add? Joanna recommends looking around your neighborhood or to other homes for inspiration and just noting down all the things that it is that you like about those spaces. If you're observing a very consistent theme of wall paneling in every image on your Pinterest board, then obviously take note of that. Tip number 4, observe your space like a designer. Joanna calls this taking inventory, and it's honestly essential. Walk into your room and pretend like you've never seen that room before. What is it that jumps out at you? Is it that oversized couch that's dominating the space? Is the rug feeling too small? Is the lighting feeling kind of off? What does the space need added to it? Or is there something missing? Maybe the walls feel a little bare, that's very typical. And if, walking into the room and just looking at it, it's just not clicking for you, here's another thing which I use. I actually go into the room and take photos, and I kind of look at the room through new eyes through the pictures. For some reason, this just works for me. It works with clothing for me, and it works with spaces too. In a picture, I can see so much more clearly for some reason what looks good and not good. And so once you've done that one, move along to tip number 5, and possibly the most essential one. This tip came up again and again and again throughout Joanna's class and her explanations of how she makes decisions when designing a room. So it might feel trivial, but trust me, actually do this one. Define what feeling you want with 3 words. For example, calm, elevated, and cozy were the 3 words that I picked for my bedroom redesign, which I'm working on right now. So these words become your North Star for every single decision, from the paint color that you select to the furniture in the room. And if you're stuck between this paint color and that paint color, go back to your 3 words. Which one to you feels maybe the most calm and cozy? And if you're wanting your room to be cozy, that definitely means that you're going to want to use some natural materials, possibly a healthy helping of wood in the space, and lots of textiles. Again, this is one tip Joanna came back to again and again and again throughout the masterclass, so don't continue on until you've done this tip. Now, to ensure you've done this one, before you continue on this video, hit pause and leave the 3 words of how you want your space to feel for me in the comments below. Curious to see if you have any similar ones to myself. Go on now, right below. I will wait. Okay, tip number 6. This one you've probably heard before, but it bears repeating. Joanna's advice here is simple. Find your room's hero and build off of that. Could be a fireplace, could be a really stunning view, Or if your space doesn't have a hero built in and you're working with a boring rectangle of a room, then you need to create a hero. That could be a really striking wallpaper, a really special antique armoire, or any other piece of furniture that could be the hero that you build the entire room around. Tip number 7, imagine your dream day in the space. Start by asking yourself, what is the dream day that I would love to have in this room? Joanna pictures her family or her clients' families often on Christmas morning in their living room, or even a really cozy evening reading by the fire before getting started on the living room redesign. So when you think in detail about how the space will be used, you'll come up with a long list of, okay, I'm gonna need a footstool with that chair, or it would be really nice to have a side table here, big enough to place a book and a mug. Or maybe, wouldn't it be nice to have the bottle opener right next to the bar cart, or on the bar cart right next to the fireplace, along with a nice wine rack? Your space is yours to live your dream life in, so start by picturing that dream life and observing what furniture and flow would allow you to live said best life. But remember not to make the top design sin. Designing for aesthetics and not your actual life. Joanna's tip number 8 is, if the chair is uncomfortable, don't buy it, no matter how pretty it looks. I know. I was a little bit sad to be called out on that one too. Now you've uncovered the soul of your room, let's move on to phase 2, the fun bit. This is where we actually get to confidently picking the finishes of our room. Tip number 9, when picking hard finishes, start from the ground and move upwards. So start first with the flooring, and then with the walls, and then with the trim, and then with the ceiling, and then with the legs fixtures. But how exactly do you pick something like the paint color for the wall? Tip number 10 comes back to those all-important 3 words. Pick your colors based off your guiding words. For example, if you said that you wanted your room to be moody, go for a darker paint. If you want it to be cozy, go for a warmer shade. If you want it to be minimal, go for cooler shades. And if you're a more neutrals kind of gal, then tip number 11 is for you. If Joanna goes for a neutral colored wall, she likes to add texture in some way. For example, shiplap or a headboard or tongue and groove to add a bit of visual interest to an otherwise potentially bland neutral wall. And if you're on the more adventurous side, go for tip number 12. If you're experimenting with bolder colors or pattern or wallpaper, start with a small space and making it sort of an element of surprise in that space. You could do this maybe with like papering the inside of a cabinet, and then if you love it over time, after you've looked at it for a while, you can carry that further throughout the room later after you've lived with it for a bit and ensured that it's something that you actually want to have in your home in the long run. Tip number 13, sample your paint on a large surface and live with it for a few days to make sure you really, really like it. I actually just read a really fascinating book on color, quite literally called Color, if you want to find it on Amazon if you're also curious. Color can have a totally different perception based off of what other colors are around it, the light in the space, and a bunch of other factors too. So I know this might feel like a hassle to go all the way to the store, buy the sample, come home, find your paintbrush or your roller, and actually put it on the wall. It is unfortunately a necessary evil step. Tip number 14, the one essential element of a cozy room, if that's what you're going for, or honestly, if you just want your room to have a professional polish, is your lighting. And if you're currently umming and ahhing over the right light fixture for your space, Joanna recommends always erring on the side of larger versus smaller and aiming to have at least 2 to 3 sources of light in every single room. If you want to give hospital vibes in your space, then just go for one of those fluorescent overhead lamps on the ceiling. But if you want to create a cozy space to sit and read or journal, then sort of sprinkle lights around the corners of the room. Now, that's the tips on hard finishes. Let's talk about furniture. Tip number 15, plan your room design in the following order. 1, figure out the soul of the space, as we discussed in phase 1. Then 2nd, plan your fixtures of your space like we did in phase 2. And then phase 3, there's a lot of things to do, and you'll want to pick them in the following order. First, your room layout and floor plan. Then, just like finishes, start from the bottom upwards, pick your rug, then build out the main furniture pieces on top of said rug, then move into textiles and accents and plants, all in that specific order. Tip number 16, when picking your rug, ask yourself the question, what is the largest rug option I can use here? Do figure out your room layout first, as we discussed though, because you'll want a border of carpet around your main pieces of furniture, and therefore determining the furniture layout first and then selecting the rug. Just remember, go large, ensure the rug has a generous amount of space around your furniture pieces. And remember, Bigger rugs make rooms look bigger. Speaking of making a room look larger, tip 17, Joanna mentions her favorite tools for making a room appear larger is large rugs, large mirrors, large art pieces, and a more neutral color palette. Tip number 18, when planning your layout, how do you ensure all of those items are going to actually fit? If you're not a professional designer, using something like SketchUp to mock up your room first, then painter's tape is your next best bet. If you see a piece online that you love, note down the dimensions, head into your space, and map out those exact dimensions on the floor or the wall with your painter's tape. Walk around the space, check that you would have a comfortable amount of space, for example, to flow between the sofa and the coffee table. Tip number 19 comes back to those all-important 3 words again. Different materials lend different feelings to a space. So take note of which materials will give your space the feeling that you noted down in the comments, because you did leave it in the comments, right? Leather will give the following feelings: rich, durable, masculine, neutral, rustic. Linen is timeless, effortless, comfortable, subtle, neutral, and lived in. Corduroy is richness in story, moody, nostalgic, comfort, and unexpected. Boucle is textural, character, and understated. And velvet is moody, contrast, comfortable, elevated, rich, and a showstopper. So hopefully one material related to at least a word or 2 from your list, and if that is the case, then pop it on your to-do list to find a way to work that material into your space to help lend the feeling that you were going for. Tip number 20, I love this one. I know this sounds so basic, but it can be overwhelming with all the options, and I'm speaking about picking pillows. I know. Life's hard, and the number of pillow patterns and fabrics is not making our decisions any easier. So here's how Joanna Gaines picks pillows. Start with a larger textural pillow, put the tonal pillow in the back. Then layer 2 patterned pillows on top where the patterns work well with each other. And if you're wondering, how do I know if 2 patterns work well with each other? It's not in the masterclass, but it is widely accepted that you want to mix a organic pattern with a geometric pattern or stripes, and also to change up the scale of the patterns too. So you don't want 2 pillows with large patterns on them. They'll be fighting for attention. Instead, vary it with one tighter, smaller pattern, along with a larger scale pattern. Which brings me to tip 21, and something I love Joanna for personally: her incredible skills at making accents special, meaningful, and a small part of your design budget, so you can instead invest in really quality staples. Joanna makes accents out of everything. She has framed a handwritten poem, she's pressed flowers, she's rummaged around her grandmother's attic and just kind of saw what treasures emerged to place on a bookshelf, or also coming back to one of our first tips, character. Maybe you uncovered something like a really old wallpaper in your space, but it was too damaged to keep it fully intact on the wall. So take a piece of that, frame it, and use it in the space as a small accent full of character and charm. Now, what I've shared is just a small slice of the fabulous advice that Joanna shared in her masterclass. So if you're looking for more, I will pop a link below for where you can go take the full class. Masterclass is truly one of my favorite things I pay for in a year, so I couldn't recommend it highly enough. But if what you need isn't actually more education, but rather more inspiration, do watch this video next, and I will take you with me to RH England in the Cotswolds for a fabulous look at what is on trend in British interiors right now.